So this week is what's the parsha of the week? What's the parsha of this week?
The parsha, this parsha, talking about the how to say Moses sent to some people go to the Canaan, one day get back the feedback, the report, how to get just two guys, Joshua and Caleb. Is make very good Hashem. We prepare the good pay, the honey and milk, but another people feedback no good. He make the dog and feed some lie, some loud, some hawa. This very big problem.
Yefe. The name is called Parashat Shlach. And you're right. The major part is about the spies. They're called spies. In Meraglim. Spies. They went to secretly check out the land. That's what they're called, the spies. Yeah. So, but then the truth is, if you look at the parsha, if you open up, you take a Tanakh, page 276. That's we have the story of the spies that goes on for 2 pages, even 3 pages. Hashem asked for forgiveness. Moshe asked 278. That's right. And then, of course, we get the terrible decree that the Jewish people will have to die in the desert. How long? How long are they going to be in the desert? Yeah, even 279. It's for a lot of verses of the Torah. All of chapter 4. Yeah. How long are the Jewish people going to suffer because of this? For how long? Chapter 13, chapter 14, they all talk about this. And then, at the end of chapter 14, take a look at, on page 279, verse 34, the number of days in which he searched the land, even 40 days. Each day for a year shall you bear your iniquities, even 40 years. Like the spies went for 40 days. And so the Jewish people had to wait 40 years in the desert. What's going to happen in those 40 years? What's going to happen in 40 years in the desert? What's going to happen to the people of the Jewish people?
Yeah, because they don't trust Moses, don't trust us.
Right. So what their punishment was, the 40 years in the desert. And what's going to happen in those 40 years?
40 years, and say, how to say, I don't know how to terms the case, no, the place is
in the desert.
Yeah, the place.
They're walking around the desert. Yeah. And what's going to happen there to the people, to the majority of the Jewish people? They're going to die.
The generation die.
That's it.
The new generation.
That's right. Everybody from the age of 20 to 60, all going to die. And so you're right, that it creates a new generation. And the next generation, Hashem answered Moshe's prayer. It's not going to be the end of the Jewish people totally, but this generation can't go in. We have to wait for the next generation.
Yeah, well, it's very... No, okay.
What do you mean?
Um, so Hashem don't want us don't trust his commandment.
Right.
Yeah, this is very important.
Yes. And also, we have to be ready to enter the land of Israel.
Yeah.
When you enter the land of Israel, maybe you have to use special glasses.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't look at it like normal. Oh, I'm scared. Land of Israel, there's giants. It's too hard. You have to put on your God glasses. With the glasses of Hashem, this is the land of promise. It's the land of the covenant, the brit, the pact. Hashem gave the Jewish people. He designed and designated it and designed it for the Jewish people. That it's Israel and the land of Israel. They go together.
Yeah.
And if the people were not ready for it, so they died. They didn't go in. Only the children were ready to go in. Sometimes a generation is not ready.
Yeah.
The world progresses. People change.
Yeah.
All of society changes. The way we look at the world changes.
Yeah.
Now it's easy to imagine. 100 years ago, nobody could think that, so much of the world we live in is so different than 100 years ago. 100 years ago, somebody was rich if they had lots of land, or they had lots of animals. Nowadays, the richest people in the world, what do they have? There's no physical commodity. They have technology, maybe. They have ideas. They have companies, but it's not about the physical.
Yeah.
It's conceptual. So the world changes. So I think that what I'm explaining is that the Jewish people had to change their concepts, their thinking,
The concept.
in order to be able to go into the land of Israel.
Yeah.
The land of Israel, maybe that's why the spies didn't want. That's why the spies were not ready. They were looking at it. They said, this world, this Israel country, it's so harsh, so much physical, big fruit, right? They say they came back, they brought the fruit, it was so big that 2 people had to carry 1 bunch of grapes. 2 people had to carry 1 bunch of grapes. So it was too much. They said, we don't want this land. We don't want to go into the land. And so they said, it's too hard. Hashem can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's true that they didn't have trust in Hashem. But more so, it showed that the entire generation, they and their generation, were not ready to jump up, to move ahead to the next, a new set of concepts. You, Baruch Hashem, you joining the Jewish people, it's a big jump, big change of the way you see the world. Right? What do you think is the biggest change that you found when you were when you were discovering Torah, Judaism? What did you see which was so different than the way you grew up? Can you think of 1 or 2 things that you learned that you said, wow, this is different, and you joined?
I think the difference is Hashem and commitment, and always special for Jews.
Right.
Yeah, because Hashem has said already, and in the Torah always talking about we should remember Hashem, what the Hashem do for us. So we always remember this. Yeah, this is very important. We should take it in the mind. Yeah, and yeah, it's not Jewish. It's separate. Hashem special for the Jews.
Can I try? I'm going to try to speak Chinese. Tashu Guanxi.
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Did I say good?
Yeah.
A special relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Tashu Guanxi. Am I saying it? You say it.
Yeah. 特殊关係.
Tashu Guanxi.
Special relationship.
Special relationship. Say it again.
特殊關係.
Tashu Guanhai. Okay. Tashu Guanhai.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
This is very, very important. Yeah.
So this week's parsha, Hashem already chose the forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, all their sons, went down to Egypt, took them out of Egypt. There's this special relationship with the Jewish people that exists. This week we learn that there's one more step of that special Tashu Guanxi, Guanhei, and that is the land of Israel.
Yeah.
The special land which we're supposed to live in, develop, and live the Torah with the mitzvot that Hashem, they're very much connected to a land, not just a people and Torah. People, Torah, and land. Here it's very common to say that we speak about the holiness of, let me erase the board a little bit. Sure. Okay. 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 Something wrong or everything's all right? Okay. Okay.
And then, yeah.
But they want more money, taxes? What do they want?
Everything's it's okay. Tell you later. I don't want this.
Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, so this special relationship
Yeah.
that you're describing, we call it holiness. That Hashem chose us and made holy in this world three things. We talk about Israel,
Yeah.
Eretz Israel, and of course the Torah, Torat Eretz Israel. It gets an extra T when you put them together. So Torat Israel, Eretz Israel, Nam Israel.
Yeah.
This is a three-part holiness that we have in this world.
Mm-hmm.
This is means the nation. The nation, right? We learned all about the creation of the nation. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, going down to Egypt, his sons, 70 people, come out 600,000, right?
Yeah.
So this is the creation of Am Yisrael. And of course, then we go to Har Sinai.
Yeah. Sinai.
And we got the Torah of Israel. This, of course, is don't have to translate Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the teachings that, the mitzvot, everything that Hashem gave us. And of course, this week, this parsha speaks about the holiness of the land of Israel, how special it is, and what a terrible sin it was that the Jewish people said, we can't. You need to have all three parts. The Torah is incomplete unless you appreciate, unless you can see the holiness of the Jewish people, the holiness of the land of Israel, and of course the holiness of the Torah of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's something we learned from this week's parsha, even more. But you could say that the Torah includes everything. The Torah tells us laws about the land of Israel. Tells us laws about how to make families, how to create the nation of Israel, how to govern the government in the land. The Torah applies to everything. So that's why many people, they speak about Torah, only Torah. Torah is the Jewish people. There's an expression by Rav Sadia Gaon who says the Jewish people are only a people because of the Torah. It doesn't mean that we don't have a land and that we don't have a nation. It means that the Torah defines for us what is Eretz Israel. What are the laws of Eretz Israel? It defines for us what it means to create a nation, how to govern a nation, how to rule, what to do as a nation. So the Torah is perhaps central, but we can also divide it up to recognize that there's holiness of Am Yisrael and Eretz Israel and Torat Israel. Have you seen that before? The three parts, the three types of holiness?
This nation and
Eretz means land.
Yeah, and the land. This is also from long time ago. Hashem committed Abraham Avinu.
If you look in the covenant with Avram Avinu, it speaks only about this and this. Zera va'aretz. He says you're going to have seed, your descendants. You're going to be a great nation. And he says you're going to get this land, the land of Canaan. It doesn't actually mention Torah. It does say in other places that, of course, I chose Avram because he's going to be teaching all of his children to do the right thing, which we associate with Torah. But of course, these are central in the entire book of Bereshit. That's the plan, that there's going to be a nation and they're going to have a land. That's the essence of the Brit. We, of course, we know that when they came out of Egypt, Hashem gave us a Torah, which defines what is the land and how to live in the land with the people. But you're absolutely right. The original Brit, the original covenant, spoke primarily of number 1 and 2, Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. There's many, many laws. But what do the laws relate to? Like you said, the mitzvot, we have a special relationship. The Torah is filled with, right, mitzvot and teachings. We can speak about beliefs. What do they talk about? They talk about the beliefs of the Jewish nation. And where are they supposed to live? In the land of Israel. So all of Torah really is designed for going into the land and living all these Torah mitzvot in the land of Israel. How many mitzvot are there, do we usually say? How many mitzvot in the Torah?
613.
613. How many of those 613 are connected to the land of Israel? So many. Must be over 200.
Over 200.
Yeah. Because all the laws of the sacrifices are only in the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash, the temple, only in the land of Israel. So all the laws of the Beit HaMikdash, of course, all the laws of agriculture, farming, only in the land of Israel, most of them, 90% of them. So there's so many mitzvot. And of course, tumah and tahara, purity, impurity, it's primarily about the Beit HaMikdash. And so all those mitzvot, there must be over 200, which are 200 out of 613. That's very. It shows you how central it is that the Torah really is a plan for how to live in the land of Israel, how to have a Jewish nation that's living as a nation in their own land, not just a religion. Like you can be in Hong Kong and you go to the synagogue or you go to the church, or you go to the Muslim, what's that called? The place the Muslims worship? I forget, the mosque. Yeah. So it's not just a religion. Judaism is really, some people say it's more, if you put all these three together, it's a civilization. What's the translation of that in Chinese? Civilization. It's a whole. Yeah, let's look it up. Civilization. Here we go.
文明
All right.
文明
So that's it. It's not just a book of laws, brachot, the laws of Shabbat, the laws of tzitzit. That's part of the Torah.
Yeah.
But the big picture is that it's a way of life for an entire nation in a land. When me. Okay? Let's look at the parsha one more time. Open up here. We have, after the story of the spies, there are a few mitzvot. One which you will know for sure. If you look on page 282.
282. Yeah.
The end of Parashat Shlach, it's in chapter 15, verse 37. Can you try to read the Hebrew for me? Verse 37 on page 282.
282, yeah.
That's right, the bottom.
Start the 20.
Verse 37. It's at the bottom of the page. Yeah. 37, yeah. Vayomer. Lower down. 37. 37. 37. Yeah.
I see.
Vayomer Hashem
Moshe Nemo Tadani Ide Beni Israel Neimache Nehi Veasu Nehi Sisi.
Stop there. Do you recognize these words? Do you say them ever?
Yeah.
In Hebrew or in Chinese? Or in English?
Sometimes.
Take a look at the English. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak unto the children of Israel. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And bid them that they may make fringes in the corners of the garments throughout their generations. What it was talking about? Did you ever say this?
Hashem Allah speak to the Moses, say speak with the Israel children, and we make them the in the corner.
Fringes.
In the corner.
So Yisrael, open up now your Siddur. Open up the Siddur. And look on page 158 and 59. 158. At the bottom.
Yeah.
Now read it in English. The Lord
spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites and tell them to make
tassels
on the corners of their garments for all generations.
Okay, what are we talking about? Do you recognize? Look, what are we reading at? Look at the page before. Do you see the page before? Look at page 153.
153.
Yeah, look at 153. What are we reading?
Shema.
This is part of the Shema, right?
Very important.
边缘
Tzitzit.
Yeah. Tzitzit.
What does that mean?
边缘
Binwen? What does that mean? Tassels? I don't know what that is. You have a different name for it? Tassels. Maybe this is a better translation.
流苏
Leosu.
流苏
Okay. Tassels, yeah. Strings on the corner. So we see Shema has three parts.
Yeah.
First part starts Shema Yisrael.
Yeah.
Second part starts, how does the second part of Shema start? Can you see it on page 158 and 9?